it was a big moment for me to allow myself to be that vulnerable and that artist that's multifaceted. And once I allowed myself to be a multifaceted artist, and it brought joy, it allowed me to reach out to the internet and be like, hey, I'm doing this too. And I was realizing I was craving this one-on-one connection. Tattooing brought that to me again. I could sit down with someone for an hour or 6 hours, being physically close to them and having deep conversation, or not, or just maybe they didn't want to talk and it was just silence and it was just music that we were listening to and exchanging ink and body.
All right, welcome back to another podcast episode of A Path Unfolding. My name is Jesse Brede, your host, and today I have a wonderful human being, Josh Ooah of the Glitch Mob. We're going to dive into all your projects and all your goings-on today, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Yeah, stoked to be here, and yeah, excited to chat with you. Have a little stroll down memory lane, some of the future endeavors, stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think we go way back. I've been a fan of the Glitch Mob since your early like West Coast rock days. Wow. I think there was I got to luckily take pictures of you guys at Lollapalooza, like when it was before they even had like a full-blown electronic stage, and really have watched you guys, go through so many different incarnations of the band and what you guys have been doing sonically. I'm really excited about this new direction and this new sound. And, I got to open up for you guys in Austin and be a part of that, your 360 shows. I know you guys just launched a new tour. Yeah. So yeah, tell me a little bit about this new sound and where you guys are going sonically.
Sure. Basically we arrived on this new direction and sound for the Glitch Mob coming out of the pandemic. Getting a lot of time off the road, a lot of time away from the music. All three of us were, kind of just taking a break, really. It was like a mandatory sit down and think about everything, obviously for everyone in so many levels. But for us, it was a good moment to kind of just really take a deeper look into who we are at the moment, who we were, what we were saying, where we were at musically, what we were feeling connected to, and just getting some space from it and some perspective. And coming out of the pandemic, trying to find, excitement and joy for writing music again and the potential for live shows and things like that, which, none of us knew like when that would be, if it would ever be or what. So, during that time, it was not easy to write dance music. It's like, what am I making dance music for? It's like, I've been in my home alone for the last 2 years, so who's listening to dance music? I mean, obviously people were, but it was a hard perspective to kind of like see at the time. And kind of coming out as things were starting to open up and feel like, okay, we're gonna like, this is gonna work. We're gonna get back out there. We're gonna, share music and do the whole thing. It was us really taking a deep look at kind of like our past and what we had written and where we were as artists and musicians at that moment. And what it kind of came back down to is we just felt we weren't connecting with the music that we had made in the past. Not that we didn't like it or we stand behind it or anything like that. We love everything. I love all the music we made. I love all the history and where we got to today. But it just wasn't speaking true to us in the moment, like what were we trying to say? And we wanted to kind of get away from this idea of grandiose music and sound and performance and spectacle and kind of get back to the raw nature of dance music, which to us was just our childhood, like coming up being like young ravers. And like, what did that look like for me? Like in the late 90s was just music, a dingy warehouse or old rundown theater in New Orleans and speakers and like a little clip-on light. You know, there wasn't production. There wasn't, and not that there's anything wrong with it. It felt like we were trying to keep building this thing bigger and bigger, and it was gonna be better if we got it bigger, and it was gonna get us in more places. It was gonna do this and do that, and it just, we felt like it kind of had run its course. You know, we had done big things. We played Coachella, we played Lollapalooza, we played the smallest stage at Lollapalooza to some of the biggest stages at Lollapalooza. So, you know, it was, we had felt like we were kind of just rinsing and repeating. And yeah, we wanted to kind of like reconnect with the essence of dance music. And for us, that was a simplified sound, was more of like a classic sound. We were missing those kind of rave sounds and the tempos in that type of dance music that we weren't doing in that current state of Glitch Mob. Glitch Mob came out of this kind of West Coast low end theory, hip hop, head naughty type era, and that's what we were writing from, but our versions of that, right? And it kind of grew into this more larger than life sound, this kind of like anthemic and heroic and complex and big emotional chords and sounds and lead lines and all these things, which at that time was true to what we were wanting to say. But I think post pandemic, we just had a different idea. There's just something shifted. We weren't those people. We didn't want to say that. We didn't need to build a bigger production that we had. And we didn't need to like write this over the top music that, you know, many hundreds and thousands of people love and connect with and have had countless stories to tell us about, which is wonderful. It's just that we wanted to feel connected to the music. And we weren't feeling connected to the music. So how do we do that? You flip it up. You change it. You do what rings true in your heart, you know? And that's what it was at that time. And kind of coming out the pandemic, like what were we excited about? What were we listening to? We were discovering artists from over in the UK that were doing this kind of throwback rave revival type of sound. And I don't think that it ever went away, but there was something definitely bubbling across the pond that we were like, yo, what is that? That's like those classic breaks that we would hear as a kid, but they're like, slow down a little bit, or they're like mixed in a way that sounds modern, or they're not, or they're just kind of got this like old school dingy sound, but with like a modern, you know, sequencing or something like that. So it was just catching our ear, and it felt really good to us, and it just felt exciting and fresh and something that we knew so well in our musical history, even though we hadn't really produced in that type of way. It's like we all three came from raving backgrounds, you know, like there's photos of Edit in his like big pants and raver and, you know, gear and candy and, you know, like doing his like light show thing when he was a student at USC when he first moved to Los Angeles, you know. And there's definitely that of me as well, you know, like I was in the 90s buying Jinkos and sneaking out and telling my parents that I was staying over at a friend's house, but really I was going to these all-night raves in the jungle room, in the drum and bass and breakbeat room, and hearing these sounds that was absolutely life-changing to me. It was just like, that was it. I knew in that moment, you know, 15, 16, going to these raves being like, that, what is that? That's it right there for me. Like whatever that is, that's the sound, this energy, this movement, this community, I'm all in. Sign me up. And I did. And I signed up and I chased that. And I'm still chasing it. You know, I'm still excited by that idea. And I still can have those memories of hearing Hive and UFO and these guys coming through New Orleans in the late 90s playing jungle, playing drum and bass, and being absolutely enamored. And yeah, so kind of to jump back to the question is like, we wanted to feel connected to something that rang true with us, and that was that era of music. Um, so that's what we did.
The part about the production, and obviously I think one thing that's really interesting to me is like the Glitch Mob is, you know, not just three members, but all of the touring crew and the management, and it can be quite an undertaking. Like you said, you guys have done some massive productions, massive stage builds, and I think it's really interesting that you guys kind of just stripped that all away and gone back to ground zero and gotten really back in touch with the music. I'm sure and I think it makes sense from a pivot from like the pandemic to where are we going to be, what's really necessary, what's really fulfilling us, and also the fact that you guys have done it. You did it amazing. You did it your way, and now we can like re-strategize, regroup. And I think back to when you guys launched Drink to See, people really knew you for that West Coast rock sound, and then you came out with Drink to See. And I remember kind of reading online, people were not quite there yet. They were confused and they didn't really understand musically what you guys were doing.
Yep.
And even some of that tour was challenging, like Coachella was challenging for you guys. But to me, that's one of the reasons why I respect you guys so much, because it's like, we're going to do what's right for us. And if y'all are with us, that's great. And if not, that's great. It's all part of the community. It's all part of the scene. Mm-hmm. And I see this sort of this, like you hit on the amen breaks. I mean, there's so much of that amen breaks happening right now. And there's a moment for drum and bass and jungle kind of happening in the US more than it has in the past. To see you guys kind of participate in the formation of that sound, whatever we're going to call it, or whatever it's going to kind of end up being, is really cool to once again blaze a trail and be part of the cycle, part of the wave of music, and like you said, being inspired again by certain artists that are coming up and doing their own thing and finding that very organically.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely nailed it there. It's like, you know, this wasn't some new idea for us. Like you said, when we wrote Drink the Sea, we were known for playing West Coast rock remixes and edited, chopped up hip hop and heavy bass and these kind of, you know, just out there, you know, ideas that we were putting together. It was hard, it was heavy, it was like head naughty 90 BPM like bangers. And then we wrote Drink the Sea because that's what we felt, you know. Mm-hmm. At that time it was just like, man, we don't want to do that. We want to write this stuff that felt deep and introspective, and that's because that's where we were in our lives, you know, who we were as people, and just trying to be honest emotionally through music. And of course, there was a ton of people that were like, what is this? I don't get it. What happened to this? What happened to that? You guys fell off, you know. And then we toured that for like a year, and it was rough, man. You know, we were playing V drums and lemurs and bass guitar, and we were just experimenting. We were trying different things. We wanted to push ourselves to, you know, not for any other reason other than that's just what we wanted to try and do. It just felt inspiring to us. And then a year later, we, you know, still touring Drink the Sea. It was like, wait, everyone knows these songs. They were like singing along to the melodies, and they knew all the licks and knew it, and it was like, oh shit, this is working. Mm-hmm. And it grew and it grew. And then very similarly, we, you know, a few years later, we wrote Love, Death, Immortality, which was our take on stadium anthemic, or like essentially like, you know, stadium rock, but not rock, you know, but electronic music. Mm-hmm. That was right around the boom of the idea of EDM. That's where, you know, in that era where like EDM was the word that I was excited about. Obviously it went on to become this kind of like dirty word in the electronic music space, but you know, like that's what it was. And it hit at a right time. And then people that loved Drink the Sea were like, what? I don't get it. This is not that same thing. But there was a whole wave of people that loved that, and it grew to them, and it was this album that connected to people like in the gym or going on a run or being like, these trying to be their best, most powerful self, and it connected to that. And it put us on big stages. We played headlining shows at like Red Rocks and Coachella and all these spaces that wanted that big sound, and
Yeah.
then, we continued on that path, and we built the Blade. We toured two different versions of the Blade, which is incredible. And like, I still look back, I'm like, wow, like we did that. It's like, 11-person crew, two buses, semi trucks, it's like night after night after night playing this incredible production that we got to build with some amazing folks. And then, yeah, like you said, kind of coming out of that era, because we played the Blade up until essentially the pandemic. There was like, I think, one tour in between the final Blade show and the pandemic that was like a DJ tour. And it was what it was. It was okay at the time. We weren't like excited about it, but yeah, we just kept our head down and did the job and did our best. And then coming out of the pandemic, it was like, okay, clearly we're not going to build another Blade. We're not going to go do that. We did that. Like, what do we do next? And that was also around the time where Justin Boreta was, kind of like phasing out his time in the Glitch Mob. And he felt it was time to move on and do essentially what me and Ed did. Is like, we wanted to go off and write, like kind of throwback rave music in like a new modern way. And Justin was like, I want to go write ambient music and write his own version of dance music. And he just didn't feel connected to the rave thing, really. He didn't feel connected to the way in which me and Ed were gonna go tour, which was stripped down, raw, small rooms, 360 on the floor, no production, no video, no spectacle. And Justin just didn't connect with that, which is, I applaud him for being like, no, that's not for me. I'm going to go do my own thing. Like, that's dope, He wanted to continue experimenting and kind of like figure out how to do kind of like big wows and, psychedelic things and video and visuals and ambient music and all these amazing things that he's good at. And me and Ed were like, nah, no video, no big moving lights. It's just like, can we just pause all that for a little bit and just see what it's like to just listen to the music and feel the music and just dance and kind of get away from like watching and more participating in the night, And that was a big eye opener for us. Was like, oh, if you build it, they will come. If you build these like simple, raw, underground feeling nights, people come and they're like, what is this? This is different. You guys aren't on stage? Where's the Blade? Where's the old songs? Where's this, that? It took people some time to catch on, but man, when it hits and it's going. I mean, you got to experience that night in Austin. That was incredible. It was like the energy was there. It was raw. It was wild. Like people are like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's hard. It's hard to know on the internet. It's hard to see. It's hard to be like, oh, well, you guys didn't play Fortune Days. Well, it's like, yeah, because it doesn't work in that environment. It's like, and we wrote that 15 years ago, and the third member that we wrote that with, it's not even here. So like, cool.
Yeah.
Just do something else.
I mean, I think part of that too is like people are like your fans, some of the fans and fans of your music. It's such a critical part. There's such big fans. It's hard for them to move on. That's always a like sort of the double-edged sword of being popular and being successful is then people want to hear that thing.
Of course.
And if you don't give them the thing that they wanted, then they're mad. And it's like,
Oh, of course, man. I totally get it because I've been on that side of it too. If I were to go, see one of my favorite bands and they just played all new stuff or it was completely different, like I respect that and I would try to understand, but yeah, I would miss those things that I feel emotionally connected to. That's really it. If you go see Radiohead, they don't play anything from like their first few records. It's like, yeah, but that was my era. That was like I felt that like Karma Police. Like what? That's like you're not playing that. Like what? Like it's hurts.
I hear in some cases like some artists, and you may relate to this, is like I'll hear Maynard say this is like he can't play certain songs because he doesn't want to even feel that and that emotion anymore, that where he was when he wrote that and what it was about. It's like,
of course,
I'm not going there. So
of course, no, I totally.
I think what's exciting about the 360 is like what you said. It's let's get involved. It is that Burning Man ethos. You're part of the show. Like you're inviting people to get as close as they want to. There's no, there were some barricades and things so people didn't just get up on your decks or anything. But you could be an arm away, and if you wanted to just bring all the energy and be as close as you guys. As close to you guys as you could, like it was there, and you were offering that intimacy, which I think is a huge point of what you're saying is we've gotten so far away from that and the money machine of music and the temptation of like playing bigger and bigger venues and being at that level is great. But what I hear again and again from people that hit that level is just you start to feel really disconnected from the fans. And it's like, I barely even really connected with people during that show. So I really saw you and Ed just having fun and really honestly physically putting a lot of energy out, and dancing and really showing people, like guiding people, like this is what this is what we're doing, which I thought was
for sure. It was a little bit of like we had to teach the people that just didn't know. Like a lot of these younger folks, it's like they didn't experience pre-EDM era music. Like they're coming of like an age to go out and listen to DJs and bands and whatnot. Is like it was like their first show was the biggest production that it exists. You know what I mean? Like they don't know pre that stuff. And so part of it for us is like a nostalgia thing. It's just kind of like trying to share what moved us so much as kids, and kind of like rebringing that to the dance floor and being like, yeah, we're just all in this. It's also like trying to get a little bit away from like them and us, the rock star mentality and the being, like you said, way up on stage, like physically so far away from people. It's really hard to get excited about that. There's moments, when the crowd is like undeniably energetic and it's just connecting on all levels and it's just, there's this exchange, it doesn't matter the distance. It's just like, we're all in it. But when it's not that, it's difficult to feel like your art is translating and your music is doing what we want it to do. So we thought kind of like, let's just get down to the ground level, take ourselves off of that stage and just remove ourselves from like, we're just way up here being the kings of this moment, and try to just kind of be like eye to eye people, just being like, yeah, this is fun, right? Cool. You having fun? Like, are you dancing? Cool. Let's do this. Like you said, just having fun again. And that was really a big part of this thing was like, let's have fun. Let's enjoy this. Let's try to, make sure that me and Ed are still like loving this so that we can continue to do it. Because if we're not loving it, then it's like, what's the point,
Totally. People will feel that in authenticity. And you mentioned kind of sharing all of this with people. I wanted to talk about the new label, All the People, which I think, again, just really hits on the ethos of what you're up to and kind of what you're going after with that. And I guess one question I had is, why did you guys wait so long? And then what was the trigger for, okay, now is the time we want it? Because I think
Mm.
you obviously probably had many opportunities and thoughts, or at least talked about it at some point. Like we should have a label. You've sort of already always had your own label for your own music, which
Yeah.
I think is a key point. Like you guys own all your masters, which is huge, and publishing to some extent. Like that's a massive deal. So now you started a label all the people. Like tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you definitely hit a bunch of the right points. Yeah, we've always had our own label. The previous label was called Glass Hair, which were all the glitch mob music up until the last couple of years lived. Yeah, we own all of our own music, all of our own masters, publishing, everything.
Huge.
And we didn't know much about that going into it because we originally were trying to sign Drink the Sea to another label. And once the label heard it, they dropped the album because they were like, we don't, exactly what we were talking about. They're like, this is not West Coast Rocks. This is not Low End Theory bangers. This is not that. This is not what we were expecting. So we don't want to put it out. And it was like, oh shit. Okay. All right. Well, guess we'll just self-release it in a time when I don't know if that was really like a common thing. Nowadays it's way more common and way
Totally.
easier to achieve that. So many, places and ways to get your music online. This was still in like, click on iTunes and buy a song for 99 cents era. No Spotify, no streaming. This is pre-streaming, no streaming, we were like, so anyways, we decided to do that, and fast forward many years later, we were so happy that was kind of just the way it all came together, because yes, like you said, we own everything now. Everything, once we did that, I was just like, all right, this is the way it's going to go from now on. Like, this is just how we have to do it. And so yeah, post pandemic, post Justin Boreta leaving the group, me and Ed felt like it was time to get off of the glitch mob island. And that's something we've always talked about in our career. It's like we always existed on an island. It was like our own island, musically, the way we performed. We were a part of the larger conversation of dance music, electronic music over the last many years, but we never quite fit in anywhere. Like, we didn't fit in the dubstep area. We didn't fit into the electro area. We didn't fit into this. We didn't fit into that. It was like, so we were all just like, well, okay, I guess we're just like on our own island, just doing our thing, releasing our own music. Like, no labels really ever wanted to, fuck with us, because it was like, we don't know what to do with you guys, and which was, it was fine for us.
Interesting. It's interesting. I would think like a Warp or somebody or Ninja Tune would come along and be, but you guys are still like a little too aggressive for those, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Who knows? We never quite figured it out. It just was what it was, and
wow.
Luckily we had a great team that was able to help us self-release everything, and we had we had our vision. We knew what we wanted. We knew what everything should sound like and look like and feel like. So it was, it just was what it was. But anyways, kind of coming out of that, we had, and we did talk about starting labels it was always in the conversation, like, oh, we should do this. One day we should do this, with label stuff. But it just didn't come. It was like we were just focused on writing music and touring, and to us, the label was just like, it's exactly that. It's just a label. It's just something to write on the record so you can put it on the internet. It's literally all we saw it as. It was like, what's Warp really gonna do for us? I mean, who knows? Like, maybe a million amazing things, maybe not. Who knows? We just didn't know, and that wasn't like so much of the ethos as artists. We didn't really think about labels. We weren't thinking like, oh damn, it'd be so sick to get on Ninja Tune or Warp or whatever. I mean, nothing in the back of our minds, like, yeah, we're all Warp fans and Ninja Tune fans, and it just wasn't important to us. It was just important for us to say what we wanted to say musically, not have anyone be like, I don't know about this, you should change that, or you should get this collab, or you should have this feature. It was like,
Nope.
no, like none of that stuff mattered to us. It was just, let's just do what we want to do. So anyways, I'm getting sidetracked, but
No, it's
the
great, man.
all the
It's
people kind
awesome.
of came out of like, well, we have an opportunity now as kind of being, kind of like elder statesmen in the American electronic scene. It's like we could approach this like a label that's just here for anyone that wants to put out music that we feel is the right taste for us. And it just was something we wanted to try our hand at and lift up everyone else around us that maybe they felt their music wouldn't land on like a Deadbeats or some of the kind of current um, modern record labels of electronic music in the US. And also, we saw this as an opportunity to share music from people that we really love and respect from different parts of the world that maybe don't have the resources to release music in the US. Like there's tons of great labels over in the UK and in that whole area that like doing similar things that we're doing and just incredible stuff. But over here, it's like you don't really see that. It doesn't happen the same way. There aren't tons of labels releasing kind of club music or rave revival or these kind of sounds that aren't super popular here. So for us, it was like, let's make this kind of like a community thing that we can help lift people up, just give this sound a good, honest try and a place to live here and be, guys that are waving the flag for what we really are feeling, which is that kind of up tempo club. And you see it in the last few years. I mean, I'm sure you as a label head and a artist and DJ and everything, like how different is the sound now than it was a couple of years ago? Like
Yeah.
people are
Yeah,
playing
shifting for sure.
jungle. People
Yeah.
are using classic amen breaks and think breaks in their, beat tracks and their dubstep songs. It's like you hear those in there. You hear the classic rave sounds, kind of like the G Jones and EPROM and Lord
Yep.
Genmus of the world. They're like, they're giving you those little taste of like classic rave sounds in their modern way. So it's definitely starting to seep into the American ethos, at least like the underground and the kind of the left field bass music world.
Yeah. Experimental bass for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. So we wanted to, not compete with the deadbeats of the world and things like that, where they're like, they're crushing it with a lot of, heavy beat based music. It was like, all right, what could we do that feels like good for us and, what do we like? So we just, yeah, we went for this other sound. And we're putting on people that most people I'd never heard of, and that's was exciting to us, all the people, like, let's just get anyone and everyone that's involved that enjoys this sound and wants to be a part of it, and we can just offer what we have to offer, which is, like our reach as the Glitch Mob and being around for the last 20 years or so, our fan base, and yeah. So it's been really exciting for us. It's been going well, and we we've not we've not done this before, so it's new and it's new and it's exciting because it's like, well, I don't know what to do. Like I'm just looking around and finding artists that I think their music is dope, and it's like, you want to be involved? You want to go? It's fun. It feels raw and it feels simple and easy. We're not trying to make anything extra shiny or like this is the biggest thing in the thing. It's just like, nah, we're just putting it up and making it available for people, for DJs and just listeners, and just trying to keep it keep the main thing about the main thing, the music, and that's it, Um, so yeah, it's been awesome, man. We really enjoy, yeah, doing it and kind of taking ourselves a little bit more out of the equation in a way, like putting ourselves kind of like back a bit and being like, you know what, like let's let everyone else shine if we can. We've been there, we've done that.
Smart. It feels like you're off to a good start. You have two, pretty sizable compilations that have come out.
hmm
And I mean, again, it's not like you guys have this grand strategy or trying to be the biggest, but what I can see happening organically, which just fits your guys' mold, is just let's build community, let's be true, authentic to the sound that we're feeling. And as that starts to congeal, like people will find you. The people that are
Totally.
into the sound will find it,
Totally.
and there's some real fun to be had. And like you said, like there's been a lot of evolving of bass music and whatever with the last 10, 15 years of where we've been going. And so I think we're feeling it speed up. We're going into like footwork and things like that, and juke. People are experimenting with different tempos.
Yeah.
And so now, like, especially as a DJ, it's like, well, how do I get from, 80 to 100 or whatever? There's these gaps that can
Sure.
be played with and that now you're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this vibe. I'm feeling this beat pattern. One of my favorites in this whole arena, which you guys have also put on, is Anna Morgan, and to watch her play and her
Totally.
sets and just the journey that she can take you on and her selection, it's like, whoa, like what is
Yeah,
this
she's
woman
really
has
found a
got it.
way to blend like, bass music, beats, dubstep, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
and club music in like a really tasteful way,
Yeah.
and really go all over the board, but it all makes sense. It's just like
Hmm.
it's really beautiful. I love her DJ sets. It's just so eclectic, and she's inspired us a ton. That first tour we did out of the pandemic, after we wrote Control Alt Reality, was with Anna, and like, I mean, literally after the first two nights, me and Ed were like, "Oh, okay, okay, okay. All right, we got to go back to the drawing board." Like, "Oh, I understand." Like, it
Awesome.
was like we were approaching it like, "Cool, we made another record. Let's go out and play that record." Like, what's what we have always done. We've never played other people's music. It's
Hmm.
always been 100% Glitch Mob music in our sets. And after playing with Anna, it was like, wait a second. There's so much room and opportunity here to have
Hmm.
fun and try new things and represent other people and lift them up and like play a on a Morgan track or play some tracks from guys out in the UK or whatever. Like it instantly opened the doors for us to be like, oh, we don't have to be such like intense artists that we only do our own art and this, because we weren't
Yeah.
really like when Glitch Mob formed, we weren't really DJs. We weren't DJ. I mean,
Hmm.
we had previous, like I had probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years of like a solo DJ career before I ever met Ed or Justin. So yeah, we all were DJs. But then when we came together, we were like, let's write music, and then instantly was like, let's perform our music. Oh, let's be a band. Like we can make this like a whole thing. And it was like 100% Glitch Mob music for years, 10
Yeah.
plus years. It really wasn't
Yeah.
until, a few years ago when we started, playing out the new music that we were writing from Control Alt Reality and touring with Anna Morgan, that was like, oh, I think we need to like bust this wide open and just experiment more and take more from here and take more from there and sample this and flip this and edit this thing into it and not, like really have fun. And it's been amazing ever since. Um, so hats off to her for really paving that way.
I love that. I love to hear that. I mean, as a producer, the gold standard is to play 100% of your own music.
Sure.
And some people can never get there. It's really hard. And I think you guys are masters at weaving a very dynamic set that takes, it's a show. You have these like high highs and low lows and moments of, like, okay, we're going to get deep here. And and for you now to be able to sort of take the pressure off and just go all in and have fun and
Mm-hmm.
play. And now that you're running a label, it's like, well, that fits. This is here. They're on the
Totally.
label. It's a little more free, a little bit more going all over the place. Well, you had mentioned being an artist, and to me, part of that is your tattoo work. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess for anybody watching, I wanted to share, like, you had given me one of my first, I think, my real
Amazing.
tattoo. And this was for my mom, about my mom and her passing, and it was such a beautiful moment to come to your home in LA and sit down with you, and as one of my favorite artists, have you leave a piece of art on my body. So I wanted to hear your story of how you got into tattooing, and like how that's become more a part of your life in the recent years.
Well, I've been a tattoo collector for the last 20 years. I have always just admired tattoo art and the process. And, every time I would get a tattoo, it was just kind of like I'd obsess over the smell, the sounds, the feeling of it. I mean, obviously they hurt, but it was like there's so much more to it. It was empowering. It was this me building up my armor, me becoming the unique person that I wanted to become and be my own canvas and become, yeah, my super me. um, and there was just something about being in like tattoo studios that just, it just felt so right for me. And like I said, the sound of the machines and the music playing in the background and the community and people talking and the smell of like the soap that they would use and things like that. It was just like, I always loved it. It was like a day at the spa or something. um, and so to kind of like jump back to the time I was talking about with the pandemic and everything, when Justin and Ed and myself, had taken a bit of a break from Glitch Mob, especially. I mean, those guys were doing their own thing. Ed wrote two amazing edit records. Um, Justin was, diving deep into superposition with Matt Davis, and they were writing tons of that ambient music. And for me, the studio wasn't clicking. I mean, I literally had my studio door closed for like a year. I just didn't feel it. I wasn't. It was an emotional time, and music wasn't doing it for me. And I was trying, and I, give it my best, and I was just like, you know what? This is just, I don't know. I can't force it. I'm not that type of artist. I have to let it kind of come to me, and I have to feel it. I have to be excited to want to do it. Um, so I just kind of had the idea to, and this is kind of a cardinal sin in the tattoo community, but I just went online and ordered a bunch of cheap tattoo equipment, um, and got practice skin and got a machine and the ink and just started watching every YouTube video under the sun I could find. And I learned so much because I had spent so many countless hours in tattoo studios getting tattooed. The sound, like I said, the sound of it, the feeling, and I can recall when I was learning it was like, oh, that's why they were doing that. Oh, that's why they were like stretching the skin. Oh, that's why they hold the machine this way. That's why they wrap it this way. That's all. It was all clicking. I was like, oh, I was like, I get this. Like this totally works for me. And like for me, I was never great in school. I had a hard time paying attention. I had a hard time retaining the information. I didn't do well. It just school was like it was whatever. It just didn't work for me. But other things that I've learned in life, music, tattooing, it flowed. It came to me. It was just like lightning bolts over and over again, being like, oh, yep, I know that. I know it instinctually. And I knew tattooing. It was weird. And like by no means am I, you know, some incredible artist. I'm still learning. I'm still practicing. I'm still trying my best. but it came so naturally that I felt comfortable and confident quickly. After months and months and months of practicing during the pandemic, us all locked up at home, I'm watching YouTube and practicing on these like fake skins, and eventually called a friend and was like, "What do you think? Can I try?" She was like, "Yeah, yeah, let's do it," and gave her a little tattoo, and then I gave myself a tattoo. I started tattooing my legs, and I was like, "Oh, this is incredible." And I have a couple of really good friends that are tattoo artists, and I hit them up and was like, "Hey, this is something I've been dabbling in. I know there's like this whole like, oh, to become a tattoo artist, you have to apprentice for many years and you have to study under the greats, and which is, 100% a way to do it, but it just wasn't the way for me because I didn't have that opportunity. It was during the pandemic. I wasn't, we just we weren't seeing people, right? I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of just like learning this at home and teaching myself. And she was like, okay, cool. Like, that's dope. Like, do that. Learn it. Like, what do you need? What can I help with? And she was so supportive and so encouraging that it made me feel confident, and eventually to the point where I was, reaching out to people to see if I could give them a tattoo for free and, try my hand at it. And it was going well. And a couple of people caught wind of it and came through. And I remember giving this one tattoo, and I was like, damn, that's pretty damn good. Like, I did that. And I felt like a kid. I felt so excited. I felt alive. I felt like I was so proud of myself and so excited to be learning something else and be, teaching myself new art forms because, I had gotten a little stuck in like, I'm a DJ, producer, artist, musician. Like, that's who I am. That's what I do. That's all I know. I didn't study in college. I didn't even go to college. I went straight to the rave, like that's what I was going to Burning Man when I was 20, I was like, was what I was learning and studying was like music and watching other people and learning from them and, asking people how to make music. Oh, a computer? Like, oh, I don't even have one of those. And, like, oh, okay. Reason? Oh, okay. Cool. Let me try, it was the same thing. And in those times, I was excited. I felt alive and fresh, and I was learning, and like, and it was just flowing, and I knew how to do it. I knew where the kick drums went. I knew where the snare drums went. I was like, I knew it. It was like ingrained in me. So I felt very similar in my tattoo journey. I kind of knew what to do in a lot of ways because of my experiences with it, from getting tattooed, from being in the studios and listening and paying attention and being obsessed with it. So yeah, and I remember like finishing a tattoo and kind of being like, all right, I think it's time to let the internet know that I am doing this and I want to do this more, and I'm excited about it, and looking for people to come be a part of this journey with me. And that was a big moment for me. It was a big moment for me to allow myself to be that vulnerable and that artist that's multifaceted, because I just think there was this, there's this, I don't feel like so much today, but in the last many years, there's this kind of feeling of like, you're this type of artist and that's just what you do. You're a, a producer, you make electronic music and that's just what you do. Or you're a tattoo artist and that's it. Like, there is something to be said about like studying one thing for so long and becoming a master at it or whatever, But, I had kind of hid so much behind the idea that I was a musician and a producer and that's it. That's all my life was. And that's wonderful. Like, hey, If that was it, that was it. That'd be great. I'm not complaining. I'm just, it was, it was saying it was really hard for me to allow myself to be different, be something else, try something else. And once I allowed myself to be a multi-faceted artist, and it it brought joy. It allowed me to reach out to the internet and be like, hey, I'm doing this too. And it was wonderful. And the connections I made and the people that I've met and the stories that I've learned, like yourself, learning about your journey and your with your mother and her passing, and being able to like help you feel connected to that was something that I was getting that I was not getting from music at all, because there was always us or me and 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people, and a lot of distance and stuff between us and them. And I was realizing as this tattoo journey went on and I was doing more and more of it, that like I was craving this connection, this one-on-one connection. The only one-on-one connection I would have really was like if I was in a romantic relationship, with Ed and Justin, my bandmates, um, and like friends here and there when we'd hang out and stuff. But like by and large, there was so much disconnect from me and people I didn't know, and I had built this kind of wall of like, okay, I'm a guy in the glitch mob. You're a fan. You love the music. You love me. You want to be involved with me however you can, which is amazing, and I'm grateful for it. But it wasn't really, it wasn't really giving me as much purpose as time went on, as I got older. I was losing that kind of like sight of why I'm doing this. And tattooing brought that to me again. I could sit down with someone for an hour or 6 hours and be physically touching them and being physically close to them and having conversation, having deep conversation, or not, or just whether maybe they didn't want to talk and it was just silence and it was just music that we were listening to and exchanging, this transaction of art and ink and body.
It's a very intimate experience. And I mean, this tattoo was like the first sort of like real tattoo where I sat with an artist and had an idea, and we brought it to life together, and I was able to, communicate that story. And that's what I left with, was like, wow, that's a lot. And you as a person, I think you're very empathetic. You really you listen and feel deeply to people. And so for you to be providing that, I can totally understand how it'll fill you up, right? And when you can, and it's not super permanent, but it's as permanent as you can do to your body. Sure. And so people are walking around with this moment and for their life, and I can always look at it and always be like, yeah, man, that was, I got to do that. That's cool. I think the other part that you hit on is like learning something new and letting those, like, if you're all these new neural connections, and when you start to, like, things start to connect, it makes you alive. It makes you feel alive. And then the part that you're talking about is about our identities. I mean, we all walk around with, I am this, I do this thing, so I am this. Mm-hmm. And as we start to disambiguate what we do from who we are, and start to, or just expand that and take on new identities for people and roles, and I am the possibility of being, a therapist, or just a great friend, or a chef. I could see you also being like a fantastic chef. You always seem to have that sensibility, right? And those things are some of that is that innate creativity and following your heart, or that, like, what's the next step? Like, I know where that kick drum goes. you have to listen to yourself. You have to you have to tune in, and sort of also at the same time block out a bunch of stuff inside of yourself and around you to really find where that line should go, and what is the expression, what is that line that's going to make you feel something, and that you connect with, and you know other people will connect with.
So true. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Well, I'm glad you're fired up and doing that. Are you still taking on new clients and work?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I definitely am. I slowed it down a pretty good amount the last year, just because Glitch Mob, maybe like a year and a half or so. Glitch Mob stuff just was with the label and touring with Ed and us, just like writing a lot more music. It was like I was really excited about music, so I kind of was like, all right, let me give this my all again. I kind of realized that like it's hard for me to do a little bit of both back and forth, so I'm kind of like doing chunks of time of like doing a bunch of tattoos in like maybe a month or so, and then writing music for a couple months, and or whether like if I'm touring, then I'm just kind of just touring for a couple months, and then I'm back home and I'm gonna draw a bunch of ideas and just do tattoos during that time. So yeah, I'm gonna just do what feels right for me and just roll with that, and not let any of the noise of the outside world, steer me in any way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good time to talk about collaborations. You just released a new project, Secret Tape, which came out on Dome of Doom. And this is with a collaborator, Marauder. How did that come about?
Yeah, so Secret Tape is it's a new project with an old friend. He goes by Marauder, which is funny and unfortunate because he's used this name for a while, and then there's the kind of like dubstep artist Morada, who I think used to be called Mastodon or something like that, which was like a metal band, like a pretty well-known metal band, and then I think he, for whatever reason, obviously he changed that to Morada, and so my buddy Carlo, who was Marauder with an R, was just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Not again.
Not again. But anyways, so we've been old friends. He used to write music under the name Low Bounce, and we made an EP, I mean, probably, I don't even know at this point, 12, 13 years ago or something. We went in the like Moombaton era. Me and him wrote like a 4-song Moombaton quasi complextro electro EP, and I met him just through the music scene. He had a couple of really dope low bounce tunes, and I would play them in some DJ sets and stuff like that. And we met, hit it off, and just became good friends. We wrote that EP, like I said, many, many years ago, and then just time went on. It's 10 plus years. We stayed friends, obviously, but we weren't making music together or anything like that. And then during the pandemic, kind of like the second half later in the pandemic era, we started chatting again. I was like, why don't you come out here and get away from, he lives in Chicago. I was like, get away from Chicago for a bit. Let's just like write some music, see what happens. And he came out, he stayed with me for like, I don't know, 10 or so days. And we wrote a ton of tracks. Most of the stuff on the Secret Tape album. And he came out maybe 2 or 3 more times over the next like year and a half or so. And we just finished them off and worked in it. And it was, we were just making music just to make music, just mess around and have fun. And it was nice for me to make kind of like beat music again. Like hip hop tempos. Halftime was kind of like, popping off at that time some years ago, and we were both excited about it. And yeah, we put together the Secret Tape Volume 1, and finished it off and sat on it for a long time. We're just like, what do we do with this? What do we do with this? It's just like another like Ooah and Low Bounce or Marauder EP or whatever. I was like, let's just like start fresh, like a clean slate, and like call this something. It felt
Hmm.
new for both of us, like stylistically. So yeah, we came up with Secret Tape, and um, like I said, we sat on that record for like a good year. Just kind of sat there. We didn't really know what to do, and then I was hanging with Wiley Cable, the owner of Doma Doom, a while back, and we were just catching up, talking about music, and I was like, yeah, I got this thing. He's like, oh, send it to me. I want to check it out. And I sent it over to him, and instantly he was just like jumping off the walls. He's like, dude, this, oh my God. He was just going nuts. I was like, oh, cool. Like, you're stoked
Yeah.
on it? Like, yeah, let's do it. And, he asked for it asked for the record for Dome and Doom. And, yeah, we were excited to give him the record. There was one song that ended up on a Vision compilation, which is Noise's record label.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first Secret Tape release. We've had a long relationship with the Noisia guys, and one of the guys that run Vision. And I don't remember how he got one of the songs, but I can't remember. But yeah, I ended up sending him the record or something like that, and he was like, "Oh, this song, let's put this on the next Vision comp." So we did that, which was really exciting because Carlo and I both big fans of Vision and Noisia and the whole thing that they do, which is very, unique, modernized. Just that European, like, intricate drum and bass. It's almost like IDM drum and bass or something. It's like very unique stuff. Incredible artists they released on that label. So we were honored and so thrilled to be able to put something out on their label. And so that went out, and then Secret Tape, the rest of the volume came out with Dome and Doom probably like a year later. And then Carlo came out, and we've been working on volume 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's a little bit more, a little different tempos, a little bit more kind of like experimental club stuff. Like there's some kind of footworky type weird quasi, like that IDM style drum and bass, super precision micro snares, and very fidgety stuff. So it's been really fun for us to work on that. So yeah, we got volume 2 in the works, and that's pretty much it. There's no like big plans for Secret Tape. We're not trying to like do like a huge touring thing or whatever. Carlo's like, you go tour, I'll just stay back and kind of like help engineer the music. I was like, all right, yeah, we'll see about that.
Well, you guys did play like a showcase, and
we did do a showcase, with Dome of Doom and Lord Genmu and Zof. Ah, shit, sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong.
It's all right.
And Wiley Cable, who's the head of Dome of Doom. So yeah, it was great.
Wiley's dope.
Wiley's is amazing dude. Long time like LA legend.
Yep. I mean that label, I think if people don't know it, go look through it and you'll be surprised by how many people have come through and gotten their start, and they've really supported it, and I don't think they quite get the shine that they deserve, but it's it's a great launching pad for a lot of people that have gone on to do huge things.
Yeah, Wiley's just got such a great taste in music. He really knows how to find really like unique artists and stuff like that. And it's cool because the label is not one thing. It's like they got Lord Genmu, who's like, like a little micro G Jones making like super crazy beat music.
He's from Austin too. I knew him. I've known him for a long time, and then he popped off, and I was like, "Whoa, all right, dude, good for you."
Totally, yeah. He's gonna make some waves for sure.
Yeah.
But then he's got like acid jazz on that label, and this and that, and Wiley's like, rock records, and just like all kind of cool weird stuff. So yeah,
I think they distribute through Alpha Pup, right? Daddy Kev's.
I believe so. I think there was a change in that because I feel like Alpha Pup ended up kind of merging with. I actually don't quote me on. Yeah, like a Universal or something like that, where it was like a big merger of some sort, and I don't
Yeah.
know, label
But
jargon.
back in the day, it was
Back in the
like
day,
Daddy
course, yeah.
Kev,
Yes, yes. Which
Alpha
he did
Pup
for us
were,
too. Like our very
yeah,
first imprint, which was called Glitch Mob Unlimited, was pre Glass Air, pre Drink the Sea, when we were still making like hip hop bangers type music. We had an imprint, essentially a label, but it was through Alpha Pup, Daddy Kev
yeah,
too. So he's been the backbone of so many things in LA and
absolutely,
worldwide
yeah.
for so long, and a longtime collaborator for us and everything. So yeah,
She's so freaking smart.
I know, prolific dude for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I wanted to share like my personal story with your music, specifically Panty Raid. It's kind of a two-part story. One was huge fan of Panty Raid and had booked you guys to play in Austin at, I was like a 300 person cap room. And eventually, like at that same time, Skrillex was popping off and just kind of getting known.
Yeah.
And he was booked to play like an 800 person room. And Disco Donnie and some of the promoters that were working on that were like, Jesse, like this show is sold out. We're moving into the Austin Music Hall. Like your show is probably going to have a really hard night. We don't want to step on you. What if we brought you in, bought that show out, and we'll put Panty Raid on as direct support. So I got to open the night. That was at the time the biggest show I had ever played. And I understood what Skrillex was doing, but I didn't understand how crazy
Yeah.
people were about it.
I mean, that was right on the cusp, right? It was like,
yeah.
it was
This is
like
2011, yeah, 2010, and the doors open, and then people just come running in for my set, which I had kind of planned more of a, like, we're going to start the night set, and I was like, oh wow, this is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And then I got to watch you guys play, and I mean, at that time for me, the Panty Raid sound was so dope because it was like the bass music was just going absolutely crazy, and Skrillex was taking it to the max. But I always loved your guys, sort of deeper melodies and sexy. It was sexy beats.
Yeah, that was the general blanket of the whole thing, was like,
Yeah.
sexy music.
And so later, Skrillex talks about that show in the Rolling Stones as the moment where he's like, "Oh shit! Like things are about to change in my life in a big way."
Yeah.
Fast forward a year, I'm at Burning Man with my crew and my wife, and I think we got to watch you guys play Panty Raid play like the sunrise set at the El Circo Dome, which, I'd been to Burning Man a couple times, but that dome in particular, like there were like skulls and like ancient hieroglyphic, and there was fire, and everyone was dressed up like they were cavemen and cave people, and I was like, whoa, this is a vibe. And so we watched you guys play and just had such an amazing night. And we're watching the sunset, and my wife had just quit her job, like her full-time corporate job, to go and be a yoga teacher, which for me was this like huge moment in believing in her and seeing like her spirit and just totally falling in love with her and her bravery to do that. And watching her like run out into the sunrise, having just listened to you guys play and been like sort of afterglow of that. And I was like, right then and there, I was like, man, I'm going to marry this woman. So yeah, anyways, thank you.
That's amazing. I love
that. Dude, it was just a moment, like it's burned, that feeling is just burned into my heart of just like, what a special time. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. Yeah, there's so many incredible moments like that throughout my career, just hearing the stories and stuff like that. But for me, in my own personal experiences, like at Burning Man, like that, feeling the magic, feeling connected to the community and the earth and the dust there and the scene and the music and the whole thing. It was like so profound, it was so unique, and it was just, so many stars aligning, especially in that dome. My career as Ooah, a DJ, started in that exact dome.
Oh, wow.
So when I was 19, I moved from New Orleans to Austin, Texas. And I lived out in the hill country for a couple years with this family, and the father of the family, his name is Gene, rest in peace. He named me Ooah. it was a nickname, and I lived with them for like 2 years, and it was Ooah Ooah, it comes from Joshua. So, and
Yeah.
that was the nickname. That's what they called me. They called it Ooah Ooh. They called me all these like funny nicknames, and it just was what stuck. That's what people knew me as out there. And then there were these two like amazing, wacky artists, fire dancer, Austinite type folks, that kind of like back in the day, like punk meets vegan meets hippie meets kind of that original Austin
Mm.
weirdness. Um, they these two folks were heading to Burning Man, and I didn't really know what it was. I kind of heard a little bit about it, party in the desert, whatever. And they're like, "You want to go?" I was like, "Yeah, screw it, I'll go." And jumped in the van. We drove out to Burning Man, and they knew a couple of people that put that dome together, the El Circo Dome. And I was 19. I was like, I didn't know anything. I was just this kid. I just left home, and I'm standing there in this dome. They built this dome with the fire and the skulls and the sound system. And Freak Nasty was playing, and
Darren.
Dave Tipper was playing, and the
Wow.
Lawgivers were playing, and I was like in tears. I was like, what is this music? I'd never heard anything like it. Back in New Orleans, I was listening to drum and bass, jungle. That was it. That's all I knew. Like there was a trance night in New Orleans, but that didn't really click with me. I went one night and I was like, okay. I was like, okay, cool, like electronic music. And then when I heard drum and bass and jungle, I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is my shit. So anyway, fast forward to being out at the desert at Burning Man in that dome, like a Friday night at 3 in the morning, hearing all this like 130, 135 break beats and all the kind of like, this is back before Tipper was even playing kind of like his, current like squishy, trippy psychedelic. I mean, he was making like new school UK breaks, and Darren Freak Nasty as well. And the Lawgivers, it was all 130 to 135, 136, 137 breaks. And it was like mind blowing for me. I was like, okay, I, once this is over, I'm going home and I'm doing my homework. I'm doing my research. And I went back to New Orleans. I went to Austin, went back to New Orleans, got a job with my uncle for like 8 months, worked my ass off, saved money, bought records on Fridays when I get paid at the one local record store, and I would dig through and be like, and I remember finding like a Tipper record, being like, oh, I got a Tipper record. Finding like labels and like Fuel and like all these labels, and I just was like collecting and practicing collecting and playing records and mixing vinyl back at home, and like finding drum and bass records that I could play on 33 as opposed to 45 on the record player that would work and sound, like cool and not all messed up. And so for like a year, I was like just focused and like religiously collecting and practicing, because my thought was like, if I get good enough, I'm going to go back to Burning Man and play some music. Who knows? I don't know. See what happens. So I went, I had literally a milk crate of vinyl in my tent at Burning Man in 2001 or one, I think, or two. And I'm in the dome, and it's like, Freak Nasty and Tipper and Lawgivers and this and that, all these amazing, and Rabbit in the Moon was meant to play. It was just like Friday night at 4 a.m. or something. And Rabbit in the Moon didn't show up, and Maddie, my buddy, who was head of like the stage who I had met the year before, I was in there, I was dancing, I was just like, oh, it's so cool. He was like, ooh, don't you DJ? Do you have your music? Do you have records? And I was like, yeah, I got my records. He's like, can you go get them? Like, Rabbit in the Moon didn't show up. We need someone to play. And I ran as fast as I could run to my tent, lugging a literal milk crate of vinyl back to the dome. I was like, I'm here. He's like, okay, you got to go on right now,
Oh my
And
gosh.
I got up there. I'd never played anywhere outside of my bedroom.
Oh,
And I played all these vinyl records that I was collecting. And dude, when I say the stars aligned, it it was so beautiful. I couldn't miss a lick. I was scratching over breaks and playing
Yes.
records and flip and just like doing everything I could do. I was like, okay, this is it. Pulling out all the stops. I didn't miss a beat. It just worked. And the crowd and the fire and everything it exploded. And I was like, okay, this is it. And
Yeah, you
ever
were
since
hooked.
then, I've been playing. I literally have not stopped touring and playing records and DJing and making music since that moment.
Wow.
It was literally like
Fuck
a
yeah.
few weeks later, I started getting phone calls from people being like, "Can you come DJ this party? Can you come?" And I was playing the 8 p.m. opening slot at warehouse parties in LA and San Francisco, and then it moved back to 9 and then 10, and then here I am, like within a year, like headlining all these like little, rave parties all across the West Coast. Um, and that was it. I give so much thanks and shouts to the Burning Man scene and community, even though it's, it is what it is today, and
Yeah.
I haven't been back in a long time, but at that moment, it was perfect. It was what needed to happen, and I had the foresight to know that if I can put in the time and build the skills, I can do that. And man, 1 year later, I was back in there just like crushing it.
Dude, that is an epic
And
story.
and,
And
every,
it's
and
so
everything
full
came from
circle
that.
too.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
true. It's so true. Yeah,
Oh
man.
man.
I
Love it,
met
dude.
Boreta through that community. I met Ed out here in LA through a different community, but it was through someone from that Burning Man night. And
Wow.
we brought Ed out to Burning Man, I think like that next year. And it was just like, okay, this is it. Like we're all onto something here. And it was just that sound at that time was so special.
Yeah.
It just worked out there. It's just a special
Yeah.
place that we could experiment and try new things.
Yeah.
And no judgment. There was no like, oh, this sucks or whatever. It's just like everything worked. It was just like it was just so received out there. Like no matter what you
Yeah,
were
that's
doing and what you were trying.
people are going people are going out there with an open mind. They want the new stuff. They want the
Yeah.
freshest. They want you to take risks. They want you to
Yeah.
weird them out as weird as we can get. That's great, man. Like you said, I'm grateful for the community as well. I had a transformative first year I went. I heard sounds I had never heard before, and I had been a club kid. I had been in the tech house and house scene and trance scene, and after that I was like, whoa, there is a whole new world. Also just the participation of like, let's all bring, like, you have to bring something, you have to participate, you can't just sit there and watch is such a powerful moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man. Well, I think that's a great note to end on, brother. I
Cool.
thank you so much for sharing
course.
all of this, and I can't wait to see you guys on this next round of tour and dance with you. And yeah, man,
man.
lots of love,
Yeah.
brother.
Thank you, bro. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
All
Talk to you
right.
again soon.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Okay, bro.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.